Auburn and Alabama basketball this weekend is set to break viewing records. But who's going to come out on top? Welcome on into the Auburn Express, powered by the Rapport. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for giving us a listen today. Joining me, as he does every single Thursday, is my good friend Jacob Goins, host of On the Line Sports Talk on 106.7. Jacob, Auburn versus Alabama will meet as 1 versus 2 for the first time in the history. As a matter of fact, I think it's the first time in the history of the SEC that they've had 2 teams meet as 1 and 2 in the regular season. Fantastic stuff. It's going to be made for theater TV. This one's in Tuscaloosa. Both teams took care of business this week. Auburn took down Vanderbilt on the road. Alabama took down Texas on the road. Big. Who comes out on top and why, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, it's a game that's been circled since the schedules came out, right? Since the season started, everybody's had the 2 matchups between Auburn and Alabama. First, Auburn going to Tuscaloosa. And then what people have, especially in Auburn, have been excited about, and those who wear the orange and blue, is the regular season finale inside of Neville Arena between Auburn and Alabama. But first, we got to go to Tuscaloosa. And the big question was, can both teams take care of business in the midweek against an unranked team on the road before they play in this top 2 matchup? And both teams did. Alabama looked really, really impressive, dropped a 100-piece on Texas inside their own gym. And then Auburn answered a lot of questions, I think, Mike. I think they answered a lot of questions, especially Denver Jones, who came up really, really big on the road in Nashville on Tuesday. So both teams weren't concerned about Saturday. They got it done on Tuesday. Even with Auburn coming off a loss, right? Just their second one of the season. They look good. They got it done. And now they get to focus on a top 2 matchup. So there's so many different matchups to look at. There's so many different variables to look at, right? The crowd's going to be crazy. The viewership is going to be wild. I mean, it doesn't get bigger than this. But it all comes down to execution. Who makes the most shots? Who doesn't turn the ball over? Who doesn't let the emotions get the best of them? And I think we have some concerns about Auburn in that case and in that scenario, because we've seen Auburn do that before. We've seen Auburn get themselves in trouble with talking too much and getting involved with officials or the fans or the opposing bench. Like, Auburn has to control themselves on Saturday. And as big as this game is, it's not the end of the world if you lose it, but I think Auburn feels really good about themselves going into Saturday afternoon, don't you?
Yeah, I think they do. But as you mentioned, there are some concerns headed in this one. If you're Auburn, you're not playing perfect basketball right now. You're still a really good team. One of my concerns, I think, Jacob, is Chad Baker-Mazara scoring from the field. 0 for 6 versus Vanderbilt on the road. I think like 2 for 6 in the last game, 2 for 12 in his last 2 games. He's in a little bit of a scoring slump here. Now, when I asked Bruce Pearl about Denver Jones's terrible game against Florida, he said, I'm not worried about Denver Jones. I wonder if he's not worried about what's going on with Chad Baker-Mazara. He still gives you a fantastic effort on defense, but certainly going against the top scoring team in the country. Alabama leads the country in points per game they have all season. You're going to need every point you can get.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think it's funny because Chad Baker and Denver Jones have kind of been looped in that same conversation the last several weeks of, well, they're not producing offensively, but they're so good defensively, you feel like you have to have them on the floor. That's been the argument of Denver Jones starting at point guard versus Tahad Pettiford starting at point guard. And I think the game against Vanderbilt on Tuesday was a litmus test. It could have been the final straw for Denver Jones at the starting point guard spot if he didn't step up and produce offensively. He did catch and shoot threes. He's shooting over 50% this year, Mike, on catch and shoot threes as Denver Jones, and that's exactly what they had him do, and you saw how effective it was against Vanderbilt on Tuesday. So if you get that type of production or anything similar to where he's scoring the basketball, he's dishing the basketball and not turning it over, then I think you're fine with Denver Jones. Chad Baker-Mazara is a little different animal here because we know what he can do with the ball in his hands. He can shoot from 3, he can pull up from the elbow, or he can get to the lane. But he just hasn't had that aggression with it in his hands. And look, he's going up against more than likely the best defender on every
Yeah.
team, with him being that big three. I mean, that's just what he is. And so he's had some tough matchups, and Saturday's no different against Alabama. How can Auburn get him open? And I think where he's his best is in transition. Get them out and running and take advantage of turnovers that Alabama will commit. They turn the ball over top 10, maybe something like that in the country. They turn it over almost more than anybody in the SEC. So they're going to cough it up. Can Auburn take advantage and allow Chad Baker to get out and run? That's where he's his best, and he's got to get involved in that on Saturday.
Yeah, look, I agree with you 100%. There are things he can do to affect the game other than scoring, but what it boils down to for me is it's the immovable object versus the unstoppable force, right? Like the immovable object, which is Auburn defensively, versus the unstoppable force, which seems to be Alabama offensively. Can you slow them down enough, right? Because if you can keep the game in the 80s, I like Auburn. Right? If you keep the game in the low 80s, I like Auburn. If it's going to be a 90-something game, I don't know if I like the Tigers on the road because I'm not sure that they can score with Alabama in their own gym at that rate. Certainly, another storyline in this one to talk about is Aiden Holloway. This will be the first time Auburn faces off versus their ex-teammate. I gotta think that there's going to be a little extra motivation here to make sure that he has a terrible day. They wish nothing but bad things for Aiden Holloway on Saturday. Lots of bad intentions in this one. I think after Aiden's comments about Bruce maybe selling him a dream, but Aiden Holloway versus Tahad Pettiford, who has the better day, I think is a fantastic storyline that we should be talking about in the lead up to this one.
But you got to give credit where it's due, man. Aiden Holloway's balling out in Tuscaloosa. I mean, he's making shots that he couldn't make in Auburn. He's making shots that he didn't make in Auburn. And he has become an X factor for that Alabama team. And give him credit. Look, I wish nothing but the best for him until he plays Auburn this Saturday and next in the final game of the season, right? And it seems like that system does work a little bit better for him. It seems like he's got a little bit better of a headspace going there at Tuscaloosa. Whatever the case may be, fine. It's working for him. I just have a feeling he's going to have a good day Saturday inside of his own gym with the fans who are with him and behind him versus what's going to happen inside of Neville Arena come early March when 9,000 plus are going to be booing every time he even thinks about touching the basketball. So I feel like he's going to have a good game. I don't think he goes off for 25 or anything, but Auburn's got his number, and Auburn's not going to let him get any easy shots. And the storyline's going to be there. They're going to talk about it. And at the end of the day, he's not the only cat you got to worry about on that Alabama team, man. They've got guards galore, including Mark Sears, who I think is one of the best in the entire country. He impacts the game at so many different levels. And so whether it's Denver Jones or Tahad Pettiford guarding Mark Sears, you've got to slow him down. Don't foul him because he's going to get that little head cock thing and get those foul calls down the stretch. Auburn's got to worry about Mark Sears more than anybody.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, Alabama's a streaky jump shooting team. And the things about streaks is they always come to an end. And when you go up a team that's as good defensively as Auburn is and can cause as much havoc as they can, it can spell doom for a team like Alabama if they are not on their game offensively for 40 minutes in this one. I'm looking forward to seeing how this one turns out. It's going to be stressful. It's going to be stressful for a lot of people. But, hey, listen, if you're stressed out watching the game, visit our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code Rapport to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Our guy, Richard, longtime sponsor of the War Report, leaving a nice note for everybody who uses that War Report code. Again, rogueshop.com. Use code Rapport to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Serving up dreams there at the Rogue Shop. Jacob, jumping back into this in other Auburn news, DJ Durkin, $2.5 million. Auburn has dropped to make sure they retain DJ Durkin as defensive coordinator. Now, reports have surfaced that Ohio State was after him, after what he produced. I have sung his praises all season long, Jacob. I tried to tell people without DJ Durkin, Auburn's a 3-win football team, damn it. They were He was so good. And when you talk to the players and when you go to practice, he's organized, he's intense, he's motivational, he's inspirational. DJ Durkin is Auburn Superman on that coaching staff right now. Losing him was not an option if you're Hugh Freeze. 2.5 to me shows a commitment to making sure that he is there for the long haul and to help solidify your recruiting in terms of the vision of what you're trying to accomplish on defense there. DJ Durkin, now the second highest paid assistant in the country, behind Penn State's Jim Knowles, I believe.
Who just left from Ohio State to go to Penn State, which is why the Buckeyes came down here to Auburn, and we're trying to take what I think is unanimously a top 5 defensive coordinator in college football in DJ Durkin. And look, in this day and age, there are purists who are rolling and crying because $2.5 million for a coordinator, that's absurd. I remember the days where they didn't make $100,000.
Oh,
well,
my God.
This isn't the 80s anymore. This is 2025, where you have to pay the best to be the best. And that goes for coaches, players, administrators, whoever. And I think DJ Durkin is the most important coach on that staff for Auburn. That's out of everybody, from the head coach to the weight room, to the equipment manager. DJ Durkin is the most valuable coordinator, the most valuable person on that coaching staff, which is why Hugh Freeze and Auburn decided to pay him and prevent him from going anywhere else. I think there may be an even deeper level to this that we'll address when the time is necessary, but I think Auburn secured a top 5 defensive coordinator through 2027. He was the reason, you said it perfectly, he was the reason Auburn had any chance a year ago. Any chance a year ago. Yeah, right. In their losses last year, Mike, listen to this. In Auburn's losses last year, all Auburn had to do offensively was score 28 points, and they win all of them except one. They only gave up 30 points one time in a loss, and it was to Georgia. That is doing your job defensively. That is good enough to win college football games in the SEC. I'm sorry, it is. And so that's the concern going into 2025, yet again, is can the offense produce? Can the offense be effective? Can it put up enough points to actually win games? Because now that you have DJ Durkin coming back, plus the studs that are on that defensive side of the football between returners, transfers, and newcomers, man, I think they got better from a year ago. I think they're more talented on the defensive side in 2025 than Auburn was in 2024, and you secured DJ Durkin for several more years. I love it. I think it's just a home run, no-brainer move to extend him, pay him, and keep him right here in Auburn. And for those people who are upset about it, whether it's the money that they're paying him or the past that he has, I mean, I kind of tell you to get over it, because he's good and he wins and he's doing what he needs to do at Auburn, and he makes this program better, and Auburn made the right move by extending him and paying him.
Yeah, the people complaining about his past, I'm sorry. We already hired Hugh Freeze if you're Auburn, so just get over it. I care that he's doing the right things now. Yep. And that he's coaching football at a high level. And from all we understand right now, through our sources and reporting, that's happening. So get off your high horse. DJ Durkin is a star, a rising star. Now, there was a reason that he got hired as a head coach at one point. And although he may have made some decisions, if you're Auburn, you're not averse to hiring people who have maybe made not so great decisions in their past. You hired Bruce Pearl. Now, and I want to make sure I'm clear on this. I don't think what Bruce did was a felony of any sort, right? Like, I think he had a barbecue and a kid came to a barbecue and like, oh my goodness, right? Hang him at the stake because he had a barbecue. But at the end of the day, DJ Durkin, like you said something that was loaded that I want to go back to about that 28-point threshold. You're doing your job as a defensive coordinator if all your offense has to do is score 28 points, 4 touchdowns in today's college football. It's not an unreasonable expectation. The rules are so offense friendly. You know, this is happening both at college and at the pro level, right? Like, you can't do a lot of things without getting a flag thrown on you defensively. It is really hard to play defense, especially in the secondary. And if you're saying all you got to do is score 28 points and you could win all your games but one, he did his job. Now, there was a time, Jacob, where that bar was about 21 points. Go back and look over the last few years how many games Auburn lost because they couldn't score 21 points. That's how well this defense has played traditionally over the last like 6 or 7 years.
2019 is the year that I go to. Yep.
Oh my goodness. They had a championship level defense. As a matter of fact, the Bammers argue with me on this one, but I think that Auburn gave 2019 LSU their toughest test of the season. Look, I know that Bama LSU game was high scoring, but they couldn't stop LSU in that game. Auburn definitely frustrated and slowed down LSU. Marlon Davis and Derek Brown, those guys were monsters. And again, the issue was offense not being able to score and move the ball in key moments and convert third downs. If you're Hugh Freeze, this was the piece that you had to keep because it buys you time to get it together on offense. Auburn has to get their act together on offense, and it's a lot easier when you have a defense, Jacob, that is giving you the ball back. They were dealing nightmares in the Iron Bowl, despite how the score looked. That defense balled. They forced turnovers. Ryan Williams had a terrible day by his standards.
Yeah, and if nothing else, Mike, it's a peace of mind for Auburn and for Hugh Freeze. It's like, okay, I've got our coordinator. We know he's good. We know he produces. And the assistants that are underneath him as well on the defensive side. I mean, man, you got some studs over there right now. Yeah. And so if nothing else, you just pay $2.5 million for peace of mind and knowing that the defense is going to be okay. And you said it. It buys you an extra year to figure the offense out, which you wouldn't think would be the craziest thing to do. But here we are still trying to beg for Auburn offense to actually produce throughout a season. But I love it. Again, peace of mind, knowing you're going to get high-level production on defense, which I think will be even better in 2025. I'm totally fine with paying that as long as the results come with it. And for right now, I have all confidence that those results will come on the defensive side of the football.
2.5 is a whole bag for a coordinator, Jacob, but we got it on the plane, so we're spinning it. Jacob Goins, host of On the Line Sports Talk on 106.7. Thank you for joining me. Before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, you could tune in if you're here locally in Auburn, Opelika, or anywhere across the country. You could tune in ESPNAU.com. We have 7 straight hours of local Auburn sports talk radio on ESPN 106.7. My show's from 2 to 4, so check us out. Again, that's ESPNAU.com Monday through Friday.
That's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report on every social media platform. TW Report on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, War Eagle.